Let's talk about having kids. When I was a kid, all I ever did was play baby, pretend I was a mommy. I had my children picked out, I had their names picked out, I had their middle names picked out, and for crying out loud, I thought I had their last names picked out, but oh, life turned out a little differently. Where is my hair tie? Okay. A scrunchie will do. When you're a kid and you feel like you know everything about everything and all you want to do is grow up and have kids, but there are things that I wish I knew before I had babies. And these are not going to be your typical things. All my entire life, like I knew I wanted, there's my hair tie. I knew I wanted to be a mommy. Like that was it was my life mission. It was my goal in life. All I wanted was to be a mommy. I didn't know that every single thing in my life would change. And a lot of times people, mostly women, I mean men can do the same thing, but I'm not in a man's head, so I don't know. I always had this thought like, well, nothing's gonna change. I've always been meant to have kids. Like I know what it's gonna be like. Well, no, you have no idea what it's gonna be like until you're in it. So the first thing that I wish I knew before I had kids is that my priorities were going to change. Before I had kids, I was a teacher. My career was my priority. I kind of had this like idea in the back of my head that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. Well, she didn't stay-at-home mom, she worked at-home mom. She did that. Little Pokemon underpants. And I really wanted to be able to stay home with my kids because I loved getting off the bus every day and having my mom be there. I took the entire school year off. So my first son was born in October 2013. Losing my train of thought here. So I had just started the school year. We start in September. So we had just started this school year and my maternity leave sub was going to be there longer than I was. So I'm like I'm blabbing on about this. But long story short, I took the entire school year off. I tried to go back to school, to teaching school in September of 2014 and it just didn't work out. So I became a stay-at-home mom because my priorities changed. I had no desire to step in a classroom ever again, like zero desire whatsoever. I wanted to be there with my kids. I wanted to be there for every milestone, every first, everything. My priorities shifted big time. Along with a priority shift, the next thing I wanted to talk about, you definitely lose friends when you become a parent, but you also gain friends. And I wasn't really expecting that. There were some people in my life who didn't think that I had been married long enough before deciding to have kids, or some people that just weren't very receptive to the idea of even having kids in the first place, and people that would say things like, why would you want to have kids and ruin your own life? Ouch, man. Like, why do people say things like that? Just knowing that you're gonna lose some friends, quite possibly. It's not gonna happen to everybody, but I was probably the first or one of the first among a lot of my friends to have a kid. Some people just didn't really understand that life switch. But you also gain friends, or people who were maybe like distantly in your circle, but like you still have them in your circle. Maybe they become closer with you when you have kids. So that's definitely a possibility, but it didn't really happen for me. But down the line, I did start to make other mom friends, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But the next thing that I wanted to talk about is that I didn't know, going into having kids, I didn't know that having a newborn would be a cakewalk in comparison to having school-age kids. When your baby is a baby, they can't talk back to you, they can't tell you no. All these things that, like the hurt feelings and the sadness, and it's not just like, oh, he pushed me on the playground. It's like, this person said that they don't like me, and that is like the hardest thing ever. So while I'm not going to downplay the transition from 0 to 1 kids, like it is hard and it's a big change, but I I wish I knew that those were the easy days before the days of sports 2-3 nights a week, or like report cards coming home that don't give you the like responses or necessarily like the comments that you want to hear about your child, or just like there's so many things when your kids get older, like they may not feel like they're fast enough at sports or, you know, tough enough to do certain things, and it just like, it's stressful. It's very stressful. So knowing that now, I wish I knew back then how easy the newborn phase was going to be, but in hindsight, everything's 20/20. Is that what they say? So while we're on the topic of newborns, I wanted to bring up the next point, number 4, is that newborns don't need anything, okay? They need food, shelter, and clothing. That's it. You don't need all the fancy getup and all the crazy fancy things in the world for your baby, because like they're probably gonna use the Mamaroo for like a month or 2. They may not even like it, and then it's like money down the drain. What are you gonna do with that big huge gadget that's just taking up space that they don't use? Save your money and invest it when your kids are older, because sports are freaking expensive. And when you have more than one kid in a sport, shit adds up. So long story short, all like the fancy things that you want to put like on your baby registry and stuff, like you really don't need it. Ask for diapers and gift certificates for when the kids get older, because that's when you're really gonna need that stuff. Have I ever even seen this shirt before? Whatever. The next thing number 5 that I wish I knew is that sleep is everything. And my journey with sleep and my oldest, like that is exactly what drove me to becoming a sleep consultant and starting my business. Because at daycare, when I did go back to teaching for a 3-month stint, he didn't sleep a wink, and it was miserable, and he was sad, I was sad, everybody was just like really sad. And so it didn't really work out in the long run. So that's when I kind of really took to the fact that sleep is so important, and it was my priority. So kind of like I was saying that your priorities change. For me as a mom, sleep was a priority, because my husband and I don't function well on little to no sleep, and neither do children. So why would you not prioritize your kid's schedule? And I know like there's people out there who were super judgmental of me because I was such a stickler for our sleep schedules, and they didn't understand it. But it's not for them to understand. The 6th thing that I wish I knew, and I guess I can say my OBGYN did tell me that breastfeeding would be hard, and I decided not to take a birthing class or a parenting class or a breastfeeding class, because in my eyes, I'm like, okay, so when I deliver my baby, I know it's gonna be painful, I know it's gonna suck, and I know I gotta push. And I just kind of decided that I was just gonna go jump into it, and if it's a crappy 24 hours, it's a crappy 12 hours. But to be quite honest, I actually loved labor and delivery, and I also loved my epidurals. However, needless to say, I was going to say that I wish I took a breastfeeding class, because I wanted to be able to breastfeed, and I gave it a good shot. I really, really struggled. And by the time I hired a lactation consultant, I already had mastitis and thrush at the same time, and it was impossible. I didn't even have a supply established, and it was quite honestly traumatic. And I had no regrets, and I had no guilt about giving my son formula, because I knew that he wasn't getting enough and I wasn't producing enough, and I was in pain. So I wish I knew that breastfeeding was going to be hard. I wish more than one person had told me that, because you hear one person say something and you're like, okay, cool. But you don't necessarily take it seriously, you don't necessarily take it to heart, and I didn't. So I wish I knew that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is asking for help does not make you weak. It doesn't make you a bad mom. It doesn't mean that you don't know how to help your own kid. It just means that you need help with something, and that's okay. When I first became a mom, I wanted to do everything on my own. I wanted to be able to do it all. I didn't want to need help. I didn't want to take a break. I didn't want to need to take a break. And it really, honestly, it wasn't until I had my 3rd kid that I had that realization. And I remember literally sitting at the kitchen table and I just started crying, and I was just like, I have had kid after kid after kid and a miscarriage, and I just need to take a minute. Like, I never asked for help. I never asked. And if people would offer to help, I'd be like, oh, I'm fine, I don't need any help. Ask for freaking help, okay? Whether you feel like you need it or not, ask for it. If somebody's offering to help you, take it. And that kind of brings me into my 8th thing that I wish I knew before having kids, is that you can have conversations with your partner or your child's other parent. You can have conversations about delegating certain tasks to that parent before you have a child. Now, it's something that you might not really know much about, like, before you have your first kid, but especially when you're having your second kid, it's important to have systems in place so that that witching hour doesn't go absolutely crazy. Because after, like, it's like the chaotic time of the day where, like, you have to make dinner, and then you feed dinner, and then you have to, like, get the kids ready for bed, whether that means it's a shower or bath night, or if, like, the bedtime routine is out of control, and it's just stressful. That is such a stressful time of day. So it's really important to delegate tasks to each other before you're in the moment, because when you're in the moment, you are stressed out and you're not very nice to that other person. And sometimes it's just like, you might get snappy and be like, I need you to give the child a bath so I can clean up dinner. And of course, that's not a very desirable form of communication, but I know I'm not alone in that, and I'm not afraid to admit that yes, I have had very snippy moments, and parenting is very emotional. So that will actually segue into point number 9, is that everyone's going to have their opinions about parenting, child raising. Do they say child rearing? I don't know what they say, but I call it raising a child or raising a wild animal. But people are going to have their opinions, and they're going to give you, whose are these? They're going to give you their unsolicited opinions, and whether you want them or not, they're going to tell you. So I've learned through the years, even by complete strangers standing in line at grocery stores, people are going to tell you what they think. And the best thing to do is listen respectfully, say thank you for your opinion or thank you for your insight, and do whatever the hell makes you happy, okay? Do what makes you happy, do what makes your family happy, do what's best for your life. Because when people are trying to give you advice, it's not because they think that you're a bad parent. It's not because they think that you're going to do it all wrong or you're going to mess it all up. It's just because they truly want to help. So the best thing to do is just respectfully thank them for their opinion, and, you know, assess your own life and your own situation, and you do you, boo. So the 10th thing I was going to talk about kind of goes back to delegating tasks with your spouse, but I did not know that my relationship with my husband was going to change. I knew that having children meant our lives were going to change, but I didn't know that just our relationship in general was going to change. Obviously, before you have a kid, it's like you come home from work and you can spend all this time together and talk to each other, talk about your day and all the things. And it gets really crazy. And our kids are very close in age. They're 16 months apart and 22 months apart. So they're very needy still, and they're still really young. They're 5, 7, and 9. So they still need a lot of attention, a lot of guidance, and a lot of parental help. Tell me this is the candy wrapper in my child's pants pocket that went through the laundry. Somebody's in trouble. Yeah, my relationship with my husband completely changed because I went to school for early childhood education, and I had all these ideas of parenting in my head, and I fully admit that this was like a me problem, and it still is. I'm not perfect. I'd like to think I'm perfect. Just kidding, I'm not. Your relationship with your spouse is going to change because who you are as a person may not be who you are as a parent, and your ideas and philosophies of parenting may change as you parent. Your parenting style with your spouse might clash, and you don't know that this stuff is going to happen until you become a parent, because you can always have these ideas of, oh, I'm never gonna spank my child, I'm never gonna put my child in timeout, I'm gonna be my kid's best friend, but like, that's not always reality. So just kind of going into it knowing that you can talk about what you think you're going to be like as a parent, but at the end of the day, it might change, and it's going to change based on your child. Your parenting style may need to be different for each child because every child is different. All 3 of my kids have vastly different personalities, and they have vastly different needs from their parents. Ugh, big towel. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is that it's important to take breaks. And I talked about how I never asked for help. Well, I also never wanted to take a break. I am the kind of person who, like, I like to be busy. I like to be go, go, go. But I'm also a homebody, so that's very interesting. I'm never sitting still doing absolutely nothing. So taking a break and taking time for myself was very difficult for me to do as a new parent. And it probably wasn't until the past year. So it took me about 5 years. Not 5, Joshua's 5. Timmy's 9. How long have I been a parent? I don't even know. Well, I've been a parent for 9 years. Oh my gosh, math is hard. I never wanted to take a break. I always wanted to be there. I always wanted to, you know, like if they had a bad dream, I wanted to be there. If they were tired, I wanted to be the one to put them to sleep. If they were hungry, I wanted to be the one to feed them. I wanted to do everything. I didn't want to miss a moment. And that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. Like, you need time away from your kids to be your own person. So take a break. Number 12, something I didn't really know until, you know, I was in it, was to choose your social outings wisely. Your social outings wisely. How do I explain this one? Before you have kids and you're like, oh yeah, I'll go out, I'll do this. You know, I don't really have anything going on tomorrow, so if I need to sleep in, I can sleep in. But when you become a parent, like, that's not an option. So being able to decide, like, is it worth being away from my family and my kids to do XYZ? Do I really want to hang out with this person? I don't even know whose shirt this is. I have no idea. Put it in Joshua's pile. But like, really just asking yourself, like, do I want to be away from my family so that I can do blah blah blah? Like, maybe you do, and maybe that's worth it, and maybe you do and it's not worth it, and you're kind of in the moment and you're like, I really wish that I hadn't come to this event tonight, or I really wish that I had just stayed home with the kids. But like, really choosing your activities wisely outside of the house when you're not with your kids is something that I didn't really expect. Number 13, I didn't really know that I would have to really put myself out there to make friends. Like I said at the beginning of this video, you lose friends when you have kids, and when that happens, like, you can feel very lonely. But eventually your kids are going to go to preschool and you're going to be standing in line at pickup, and there's going to be other parents there, and maybe they're wearing like the same brand shoes you love, or maybe, like, I don't know, maybe like your kids get along really well, or you know, anything. Just put yourself out there to make new friends, because as that circle closes, or as other people leave your life, it's making room for others. And I can tell you that some of the most important people in my life right now are people that I met through my kids' preschool. So put yourself out there and be open to getting coffee with a parent while the kids are at school, or you know, going for a walk while the kids are at school, or like doing something. Like, you're not going to be committed for a lifetime to being someone's bestie, but like, put yourself out there to make a friend and be supportive. If you see a parent struggling in the hallway, like this happened to me, I was struggling. I had 3 kids doing 3 different things at 3 different times, and I had to divide myself real quick all around town. And I was struggling, and I remember when one of the parents reached out to help me, and it was just so appreciated, because people are generally just like on their way, on their path to do what they're doing, and they're not necessarily like helpful. But when somebody reaches out and helps you, it just makes you feel so much less alone. So put yourself out there. The next thing I was not expecting when I became a mom was that my love language changed. And I know I said that my relationship with my husband changed, but like, my love language across the board, like, I feel like you can have a love language that relates to friendships, and a love language that relates to your romantic life, and just everything in general. But like, in my romantic life, so romantic, I realized that my love language completely changed. I was never the kind of person, and I've said this in this video, like I never wanted people to help me. I never wanted anyone to do anything for me. But now that I'm like in it, oh honey, do you want to do the dishes for me? Sweetheart, can you switch the laundry? Could you feed the cat? Can you get the kids ready for school? I mean, seriously, if somebody wants to do something for me, I am all for it, because one of my like highest ranking things in the love language thing is acts of service. So I have very much come into my own with like asking for help and knowing that if somebody is going to offer to help me, I'm gonna take it. And if they're not gonna offer but I need it, I'm gonna ask. And that's okay. The last thing we're gonna talk about here is cliche, but the 15th thing that I wish I knew before having babies is that it goes by so fast. I honestly cannot believe that I have been a mom for 9 years. How is that possible? How do I have 3 human children that I am responsible for keeping alive, feeding, dressing, sending to school, making sure they do their homework, like all the things? How on earth am I old enough, mature enough, able enough to do all these things? Like, I feel like I was just in college. So like, how can I be like old enough to have kids? It really does go by quickly. So take time to smell the roses, enjoy it. Every day is one day closer to the kids being fully grown up and not needing us anymore. And it's sad. It's really sad. My husband and I were kind of realizing like it's Christmas time and we're thinking about presents to buy the kids, and we're like, they don't really play with like toys that much anymore. Like they're not really into playing with toys. And at one point our entire house was a cluster F of toys. So it's just like, it's crazy how fast everything goes by. And don't take it for granted, because you never know if something's going to happen, or I mean, anything can happen and you're not promised tomorrow. Our children aren't promised tomorrow. So enjoy it. Enjoy every single moment. You're not going to enjoy every moment, but you can enjoy the fact that you're not going to enjoy every moment. Does that make sense? Like, enjoy the fact that when you need a break, you need to take a break, and respect yourself enough to take that break because you want to be the best mom that you can be for your child. That's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed doing freaking laundry with me. That is one more thing I will say I never expected, guys. This much freaking laundry. There's a shit ton of laundry when you have kids. It's never ending. It is never ever ending. Anyways, I hope that you guys subscribe to my channel. I hope that you can relate to some of this, and I hope that if you have young babies that you can get some sort of insight from this video. I generally talk about sleep training, potty training, and all things motherhood. So if this resonates with you and you want to hear more from my channel, please subscribe and keep blooming. Mwah.